This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
I was trying to get it how I live. I want them dead presidents. I want to pull up, head spin, get fly. I got 6 jobs. I don't get tired. I don't get tired. I don't get tired. I don't get tired. Get fly. I got 6 jobs. I don't get tired. Full-time artist. Ex-guard, he said grind harder, learn from every time you ever fail. If it never failed, just grind smarter.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of Two Bad Hombres, episode 131. Thank you for finding us. You can find the Detroit Sports Podcast anywhere you can find podcasts, and we greatly appreciate you hitting that download button. Vito, not in studio today, as we are recording this Saturday morning. I got Vito up. Part of me is excited, too, because he's a young cat, 26 years old, and I know he likes to sleep in till 11, 12, get his day started. So anytime I can wake Vito's ass up, it's a good day. Good morning, Vito. What up?
Good morning. You know, that's blasphemous, you saying that I sleep in until 11 or noon. Okay? I will not have any of that this morning. I get up earlier than that, at least. Maybe not as early as you with your wife and 2 kids, but I get up relatively early, John.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that. In that now that you're 26, you're obviously looking for great opportunities for work and things like that, doing the podcast, reporting, all that good stuff. You're definitely hustling. As you get older, you are waking up a little bit earlier. What time are you getting up, man?
I do. I mean, the last time I really slept in until you said noon, the last time I slept in until, well, even 11 o'clock was probably, I was 21, about 5 years ago. You know, I'm a healthy 26, an old, a veteran 26, savvy 26. So, yeah, about 6 years ago when I last slept in that late, John.
Wow. So you actually proven me wrong. I guess I'm assuming. I thought that...
You're assuming. Yeah, you're making assumptions here. You're making assumptions, John. I don't like that. I don't stand for that.
So we haven't had a chance to speak on this podcast in regards to what you did on the 4th. Obviously, I've seen some photos on your Snapchat. Seemed like you did some usual routines there, had a good time, got away from everything, got a chance to go on the golf course. What'd you do on the 4th, and what have you been doing with yourself in terms of leisurely activities in the last 7 days?
Well, I was at Lake Wixom with some buddies, and Nick Schmiegel was there, and we even did some golfing and beautiful weather for the most part. We're on the water. We were on a boat. We were walking in the water on a Pontoon Alley, or at Pontoon Alley. So I don't know if you've heard of it, if anybody knows about it. I bet somebody would. But anyways, you know, beautiful weather, by the water, and we took boat rides. So casual, relaxing, and fun with friends.
Nice. So you had a good time. You did get away. The purpose was for you to have a good time, relax a little bit with the buddies. Everything was good?
To get away, relax, and drink some alcohol.
Yeah.
So, you know, I boozed it up a little bit. So I had to do that, too, and I had some fun. And, hey, I wasn't harmed. Nobody was harmed. And once again, you know, beautiful weather for the 4th of July weekend. And it was about getting away. Yes, it was about relaxing and having a good time as well, and that definitely was accomplished.
Okay, we have a couple objectives this week on Two Bad Hombres. Obviously, we talk about major things that are happening in sports and in society, and a couple big things kind of broke out this week. Recording on Saturday has put us in a good position to talk about these things, and one of the first things that broke out online, I don't know if you saw it or not, but obviously, as we're recording this, Serena Williams is playing in the final of Wimbledon, and she's looking to, again, attain great accolades. She's such a great tennis player, a role model. Obviously, we've seen now that, throughout the course of her career, people that are younger have been influenced by her, and they're making runs now. So the next generation that has followed her is coming up. But did you see online where somebody asked a bunch of men online, and they said, okay, you know what? Could you take a point off of Serena Williams? And 1 in 8 men said potentially that in a tennis game, they could take a point off of Serena Williams, and it caused this great debate regarding, how great Serena is, how, guys believe that, oh my God, they're better than they are, the dichotomy between men and women. And I say this, look, when you ask that question, most guys are going to say, yeah, I could take a point, maybe even a couple. Maybe not because of the fact that, hey, they could actually hit one by her, but maybe, you get one back and she makes a mistake and hits it into the net. I don't make nothing of it. I think it's really great. And I actually believe that if I played a match versus Serena Williams, I could take a game or two. I probably would lose 6-2, 6-1 in that area and get a couple by her, get to the net a little bit, make her make a couple mistakes. But I don't make much of it in that many people got into this debate regarding, oh my God, there's no way an average guy would get any point. Now, maybe in a hack, a guy that never picked up a racket, obviously we're not going to count his vote or anything like that. But if you're somebody that's a novice or somebody that can at least hit the ball back, I would say it's not a problem to take a point or a game off of Serena Williams. What say you? Did you read and hear about that?
I did. I think it's ludicrous. I think it's blasphemous, once again, to take a word or term from Stephen A. Smith, because a lot of these guys are saying that just because they can't lose to a woman, it would be degrading to them as a man, and they want to be the most masculine dude possible. Even you, I perceive, John, who did play tennis, I know you did, but to beat Serena Williams, to take a point or even a set from her, a game from her, I think it's ludicrous for these men to think they're really capable of doing that. I think a lot of it comes down to not wanting to lose to a woman and being embarrassed to lose to a woman because you're a guy, she's a woman, women are supposed to be less athletic, less athletically gifted. I think that's BS. When you're talking about a woman such as Serena Williams, who is one of the best tennis players of all time, if not the best tennis player of all time, it's ludicrous to think that you can take even a point from her. I think when you're just an average, you said an average, so I think even as an average, to say that you can do that, and some of these guys too, I know that said they could do that, could take a game from her. Well, these are guys that haven't even picked up a tennis racket before, so they're either probably less well off than you at playing the game of tennis. But even a guy like you, when's the last time you played tennis? I know you played in high school, but once again, even as a high school tennis player, to think that you can take a point or a game from Serena, I just don't think it's feasible. And I think it's really, really stupid for these guys to have said what they did.
Well, the last time I played was a couple weeks ago. I pick up a racket every now and then, hit the ball against the wall. I got to love the sport, obviously, around the time of the majors, the Grand Slams. You have the French Open, Wimbledon. This time of year is conducive to get out there and hit some tennis balls. Competitively, I haven't played a competitive match in years. But I would say this, strategy-wise, all you got to do is, like I said, if you're an average novice tennis player and you're a guy and you can serve, okay? The caveat is you have to have a serve in the hundreds. Obviously, you got to be able to serve the ball. If you can serve and you have an effective second serve, then you can do some things in terms of maneuvering the ball, hitting a good serve, and then hitting a good approach shot, and then being able to maneuver the ball. I'm talking about a novice. Yeah, hacks, obviously, they won't be able to even swing the racket and hit the ball. But I'm saying, and I'm not saying about winning matches. I'm saying about just competing. There are times, too, where if you can maneuver the ball and make someone, the way we describe it is get them flat-footed, where you hit behind them, or you maneuver the ball in a way where maybe you hit some drop shots, maybe you hit in a certain way to make her come in and try to use some passing shots or some lobs. There are strategies that you can use to get some points off of her. And remember, there are times where she's going to be swinging wildly to try and win the point, and there are times where Serena sprays the ball. Now, there are times, I know these guys are not thinking that to that level like I am. They're thinking like, okay, yeah, I can just hit the ball by her. No, but in tennis, there is such a thing as an unforced error where you're trying to swing the racket so hard to get your forehand to get a winner by somebody that you spray it long or wide or anything like that. So that's where my thinking is I would use a little bit of a good serve to her backhand, and then I would slice it real deep in the corner there, force her to go to her backhand, and then try to get in a good position where she returns it, and I can use a good forehand volley and hit it behind her and take care of business. Now, look, it's not going to be pretty. I don't think that I'm going to be blowing a bunch of winners by her, but I think I could be savvy enough to maneuver the ball a little bit and handle myself on the court. And so hopefully you heard my eloquent description of tennis and you're like, wow, I could actually maybe get a game or two. Now, these novices, I think that people are overreacting when we start comparing men to women and things like that. And obviously, we've seen Billie Jean King. She defeated Bobby Riggs, and we all know of intergender matches that have taken place and things like that. And obviously, if you're a professional woman and you're a tennis player, you're going to have an advantage over novices and things like that. But at the same time, tennis is a sport like golf where you can mix it up a little bit, just like poker, just like golf. You can hang in there a little bit with a pro. Now, you're not going to, maybe, an average golfer will shoot like an 87, and then a regular golfer is going to shoot a 70. But in the midst of that round, you could probably get a birdie where a golfer gets a par or a bogey. It's natural. So it's not unheard of to think of a man being able to compete. Now, obviously, I think that my stance on it is I'm upset at the overreaction of those that are looking at it and saying, oh my God, how could you say that? Serena's the greatest of all time. They're not taking into account that, hey, within the course of a tennis match, there's some errors, there's some things that guys could do. So I'm not terribly upset with your stance. I can understand where you're coming from. But it does lend to the extension of this conversation because obviously a lot of people are focusing in on the Women's World Cup team and how they conducted themselves, the manner in which they celebrated on the pitch. They obviously are the best women's soccer team in the world. They're reigning back-to-back World Cup champions, and now they've done the victory tour, and they're getting blasted and drunk and twerking on videos online. Obviously, everyone's observing what they're doing, and people are, again, commenting on the way these women are celebrating. I talked to Adam about it, and I said, look, it's not really a misogynistic thought. It's the debate between being humble when you play sports and being excited and passionate and making gestures like when you score a goal and then you put your fingers up. It's the debate between being humble and being braggadocious and being excited. That's the debate, because there's a lot of people in society that say, hey, go about there, act like you've been there before, score a goal, hug, and then move on. Others are like, oh, let it fly, do whatever, it's sports. That's the debate. It's not, men can celebrate and women can't. No, those that are saying that it was kind of a bad look are saying, look, just handle your business. You guys are the best. Be professional. But I'm of the opinion now at 40 years old, look, it's sports, man. It's fun. Let the women have fun. Let them, if you score a goal in soccer, there's so few and far between that, hey, celebrate. Maybe you can mock your opponent a little bit. And the celebrations after have been great. They worked hard. They've done their thing, so I don't have a problem with it. One, I'll ask you, what was your level of involvement in watching the women, and are you impressed? And where do you stand on that debate in terms of how athletes should conduct themselves? And then after, we're going to talk about whether or not you think that these women deserve equal pay, because that's been the biggest controversy after the Women's World Cup is they sued their federation amidst the World Cup looking for equal money to the men. And there's stuff to talk about there. But where do you stand? Do you care if athletes, do you care about these women, making those gestures, twerking, having a good time? Or do you say, hey, you guys are looking like the ugly Americans that are playing soccer all over the world and giving the United States a bad name? Be humble, act like you've been there before, stop making a mockery of the game, and stop bringing all the attention to yourself for the way you celebrate.
I would say when you're a professional athlete, and when you're succeeding at such a high level as the U.S. women's national team, you have a right to celebrate as much as you desire. I mean, they're terrific, the best team in the world, and they've proven that time and time again. And Alex Morgan, I think, was doing a gesture of sipping some tea, and somebody thought she was trying to make it look like she was lighting up and smoking marijuana. And I know you are talking about that twerking video. I believe that was Alex Morgan again in that video, and you're bringing that up. And some people I know are saying it's excessive and too much, and they don't want to see that out of their star pro athletes and role models for young girls and just young people in general. Well, guess what? When you're succeeding at that high of a level, once again, I think you have the right to celebrate, to show that you're happy that you have won the FIFA World Cup. So you deserve to celebrate in that right. And there's many reasons why they deserve to celebrate. And another reason why I believe Megan Rapinoe and others can say what they want is that you're getting called out by the president of the United States, of the nation that you play for. That president, the leader of the free world, is calling you out left and right. So obviously it motivates you to probably even play at a higher level, or at least it probably perturbs you. It perturbed Megan Rapinoe and her teammates. So it's got to tez up. And so they're going to let their emotions show. And I totally get it, why they have. And, you have people calling them out as well for their pay and saying they don't deserve to receive as much money, the same kind of compensation as the men who don't achieve nearly as much success and didn't even qualify for the most recent FIFA World Cup, right? So I think you have to attribute it what the women do in terms of celebrating, I think, to a lot of things. And one of the things is they're going to make sure it's known to the masses that they have won. They deserve to be on this level. They deserve the equal pay. And they deserve not to be called out by the president and others for celebrating when they have the right to, when they're at the top of their profession and have just won another World Cup and are, for sure, hands down, the best team in the world when it comes to women's soccer.
Now, Vito, I don't know if you are aware, but they have conducted financial audits, and it's all across the board. It's been documented. The women bring in more money. The revenue is higher than the men that's brought in. The TV ratings are higher. They are obviously more successful. So outside of gender, they are within their rights to sue. They're within their rights to say, hey, we deserve a bigger portion of the pie than the men do. It's just straightforward capitalism in that, hey, we bring in more money, so why aren't we getting as much or even more than the men? So I'm all aboard with that notion because they've done the numbers, they've crunched it, they've researched it and said, look, we bring in more money, more eyes are on us, we probably sell more merchandise because we win more, so why don't we deserve a bigger piece of the pie? And I think it's going to happen eventually. Especially with the fact that you sued the federation and then you went on to win the World Cup. So the majority of the country, athletes, celebrities, are behind the women, and I have no problem with their request for more money. And when it comes to equal pay, I don't really like to discuss it in terms of gender. I like to discuss it in terms of, hey, if you're at the top of your game and you bring in a lot of money, and there's a reasonable expectation that, hey, you bring in a big chunk of money, then you deserve a nice, healthy slice of the pie. But where do you stand on celebrating? Like, do you care when an NBA athlete throws down a dunk and maybe flexes, or potentially speaking in baseball, I know that you cover so much and are so passionate about, like we've seen and talked about, where these athletes will hit a home run and some will spin and do some things in the batter's box to maybe show up pitchers or things like that. For me, I was a guy that was a Pete Sampras guy in tennis. I was a guy that was, as a youngster, which is kind of weird now in that I've kind of reversed it, whereas most young people are into celebrating, and as they get older, they want their athletes to be humble. Whereas when I was a kid, I was a Pete Sampras guy, and he went about his business. For those that don't know, he was a great Grand Slam tennis champion. He just went about his business. Never really showed a bunch of emotion. He just played well and handled his business and conducted himself like a true pro, played his match, won, and then left the court. And then you had this rebel in the name of Andre Agassi come in that took a bunch of fan support because of his ad campaigns with Nike and with Canon and things like that. So he was a guy that came on and was just such a force of personality, and he would come in and rile up the crowd and be, what we call a major personality, big ego. And so, but as I got older, when you play sports and you recognize, what? Sports are supposed to be fun. Sports are supposed to be, entertaining. So as I got older, I said, what? I like Pete Sampras, but at the same time, I like a little bit every now and then to say, hey, look at me. Look what I've done. Celebrate a little bit, because I say that, hey, if you don't want your opponent to do that kind of thing, prevent him. If you don't want to you see somebody dance in the batter's box, don't give up a home run. If you don't want to see somebody flexing, don't give up that massive dunk. So that's where I'm at with it. I think that everybody that's involved with it that kind of gives their opinion should say, come on, this is sports. It's fun. We don't have to take everything so seriously. And hey, momentarily, if you see someone celebrating, good for them. Try to prevent something like that happening the next time. And when you get your opportunity, then you can sip your cup of tea. And that's where I stand on it. But where do you stand on it as you're observing sports? And because, again, we see the pitfall sometimes where when these athletes do that, it results in some physicality, and the opponent retaliates and maybe goes on Twitter and then will spout off and say, hey, act like you've been there before, be classy. And Lions fans understand that greatly, because a lot of fans still to this day will tweet us. The number one thing they want to see their football player do after a touchdown is not dance, is not do the Macarena, is not do the stanky leg. It's just hand the ball back to the referee like Barry Sanders did. So it's an interesting concept, interesting debate, but where do you stand on celebrating in sports?
I think a lot of old men like yourself, I'm going to put you into the group of people. And yeah, I'm being a little bit sarcastic here about you being an old guy, old man. But I think the older you get, the more you see people become the people that are the get off my lawn kind of people, right? And don't want to see the celebrating. And I think another factor that I want to throw into the equation when it comes to these people that don't like the celebrating occurring, I think these people too are envious of these people, these athletes having the success that they do at their respective sport. And because of that, well, when they see somebody celebrate, it gets and eats at them, at their inside, and it boils up some emotions, it stirs up some emotions on the inside of them as well, because they feel like, well, they wish they were out there achieving that level of success. And once again, just like with the U.S. women's national team, I strongly believe when you are accomplishing a great amount of stuff and winning championships, winning World Cups, it gives you all the right in the world to celebrate, to live it up a little bit, to show off your personality. And that's who these athletes are, especially nowadays, these younger ones that are going up and getting into the sport right now, Doc. They are the types that like to showcase personalities. And in this day and age of building your brand, building your voice, and showcasing it to the masses on Twitter through so many different social media means, and, being, once again, your own brand. Well, because of that, it leads to more and more of these athletes. Well, I think having the right and just simply showcasing their feelings on the pitch in soccer, whatever playing field they're on in their respective profession. And I'm all right with it, because it's who these people are. Let them be authentic. Don't we want to see these people's emotions showcased and who they really are on the playing field? Why make them hide it? Why make them disguise it when that's really who they are? So for me, and maybe because I am a younger person too, and I am a millennial, maybe that's why I'm fine with the guys celebrating as well. But that's just my authentic, true feeling as well, that if you want to celebrate and you're achieving a lot of success, I think it gives you the right to do so, Doc.
We wouldn't be able to broadcast. We wouldn't be able to keep the lights on and the studio mics hot. We wouldn't be able to record from an office if we didn't have great support from our sponsors. And Vito's now going to tell us about one of the great sponsors of the network, DC Sports. Tell us about DC Sports, Vito. Where can someone go get great memorabilia?
DC Sports, a terrific location at Lakeside Mall in Sterling Heights for all of your authentic sports memorabilia and terrific autograph signings. And to find out more about DC Sports, please go on Twitter at DC Sports Detroit, and make sure to check out DC Sports' terrific website at DetroitCitySports.com.
Great sponsor of the network, sponsor of Two Bad Hombres, DC Sports Detroit. They have a great location in Lakeside Mall. I love to hear the announcements of the signings. They recently had one with Lou Whitaker. I've seen that you've covered one with Nico Goodrum. Steve Yzerman had a private signing. There's always some great memorabilia that you can check out. Obviously, if you go to their website, you can see some of the great things that are hot off the presses, things that are selling right away, like an Andreas Athanasiou jersey, a signed Steve Yzerman jersey. So go check out the website and see what's going on. Steve and the crew at Lakeside Mall are doing some great things. DC Sports, a great sponsor of the network. We greatly appreciate those that take a chance and work with the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. All right, Vito, last topic. I know you've seen it. I know you clicked on it because 25 million people this week on Wednesday, within a day, about 20 million people clicked on it. They saw Bagel Guy go into a New York bagel shop, and he was livid. He was upset. He was talking about the fact that he was so upset that women call him short online, and he can't get a date. And, throughout the video, if you watch it, people are really laughing at him in terms of the fact that this man is having a meltdown, and it's being videotaped, and then a couple guys are getting mad at him saying, hey, don't talk to people like this. Stop addressing all the women in this vulgar manner. And one guy at the end of the first video tackles him, actually, and says, hey, shut up. And you see him actually get assaulted in the video. Then somebody else, I don't know if you were able to follow the thread, somebody else posted another follow-up video in which he says you know what? I don't even need my breakfast. And he throws it down and he walks off and he's like chirping. He's really upset. Then he goes back in one of the funny moments. He's like, you know what? Actually, he picks up his breakfast off the floor and goes, I'm actually going to eat my breakfast. And he walks off and exactly. And you see this man, this little guy actually spout off, get mad. And it was just a viral video that really went crazy. And then TMZ on Friday caught up with the guy. And unfortunately, when you get a chance to see this guy, you can tell a little bit there might be some cognitive issues. There might be some severe mental health issues because of the fact that, hey, you know, he's probably been bullied, and he's actually going to champion that position going forward in that he's saying, look, you know, I hear this stuff a lot, and I'm tired of hearing it. But first and foremost, many people are even questioning the true nature of the video itself, saying, you know what, this could be staged because if you go and check out this guy's YouTube page, there are a lot of these videos where he's out there ranting and raving at a 7-Eleven. He's out there, you know, spouting off his opinion. Do you believe in the authenticity of this guy? And what was your reaction when you see this guy, you know, acting this way in public? It's so 2019. It's so where we're at as a society where we're actually all looking at a guy and laughing at him.
It's been a tough week for little fellas everywhere. And I can totally feel what he's going through or has gone through as a little fella. I'll say that much.
I'm dying, Vito. Oh, my God. I'm going to tweet that. Vito, that's funny. That's why I got you on this podcast. And actually, I'll be honest and fair. You're one of the unique individuals that can weigh in on this. You know, you don't
I really can't. I'm a valid boy. I know what it's been going for. I'm shorter than that dude, the bagel boss.
Exactly.
Who did truly act like a boss there. And I don't know how valid really what he was doing was there. I think he was just trying to go viral. So I really think his videos there lack some validity or what he was saying. I think he was just trying to get the attention, trying to get the clicks online and all the attention. And TMZ has picked it up and interviewed him. And I think this is a guy, from what I heard, had lost his job like 2 weeks prior. So it had some bad stuff happen in his life. And he found this outlet to go viral, to try to make some money for himself. And everybody wanted to talk to him and is talking about him on Twitter and online everywhere. So he's built up a name and a following for himself. And I think what he has done is lack authenticity. Unlike what I was talking about with the athletes when they're celebrating and when they are authentic in their celebrations. You know, as I was saying, that's who they are, those athletes. And they're just expressing it to the masses on the playing field. So I give them all the right in the world to do so. For this guy, though, to take all of this attention, to put it all on himself by acting like, you know, he's bothered by every single thing, and specifically by his height first and foremost, and not being able to get and land a woman because of it. Well, I get it. I know there is some of that carries some validity because I see it myself on a day-to-day basis being a little guy and a little person specifically. But for him to carry it out, to take it to this level, I think he's taking it to a level where you can say it's not all true. It's not all valid. And some of this he's making up once again to gain attention and to ultimately go viral.
Yeah, it was a fascinating look. So among the community, do you guys look at this guy and go, oh, man, this guy is really, you know, giving us a bad name. We're not all angry little we're not all angry little people because you're
a little guy too, hey. Watch out. Watch what you're saying, dude.
Exactly.
Don't just be coming at me. You're a little dude too. I mean, this guy's shorter than you, but and a little bit taller than me. He definitely looks small in the video.
Yeah.
Looks really small, but
I sympathize with him.
I never have taken anything that I've experienced to that extent, or let it compartmentalize and whatnot, and take it on the inside and deal with that. So for me, I've never reacted like that, or let once again all of those emotions just boil up on the inside of me and let it take over me to where I overreact in that degree. So yeah, I think it's kind of giving the little fella a bad name to sum it all up.
Yeah, no, I definitely related to him. In that, I've had people smirk at me in terms of my height and things like that. I don't know if you've seen it, but a long time ago, when I was maybe 17 or 18, there was this piece on television. It really hurt my feelings. And I've talked about it, I think, in early podcasts, but it really affected my self-esteem. And it took me a long time to get over. What they did, Vito, was there was just an investigative journalist. And what she did was she lined up a bunch of people in like a room similar to like where criminals go and you line them up, right? And there were short people, there were tall people, skinny people, fat people, okay? And by and large, they would have just random people come into the room and just stare at these people without knowing anything about them. And by and large, women would say that they were more attracted to the taller guy. They felt like the taller guy was more successful without knowing anything. They just started to, they started to stereotype just based on appearance. And the reporter was, kind of hitting at the thesis that people in general value height and prowess among men. And it really bothered me because I was impressionable at that time. And I'm like, man, I'm shorter compared to my peers. So people's first judgment of me is going to be that I'm unsuccessful or that I'm not going to be attractive or that, they're not going to give me that first glance. And so it really bothered me. It really affected my self-esteem. And I became not angry. I became withdrawn. It was my response to it was like, man, I don't belong here. And still to this day, from time to time, my biggest thing for me personally is kind of feeling like I belong and feeling like I fit in, especially in a taller world where you just see these kids that are like, 15 years old and they're already 6'1" and can do things, and they're taller than me. And but eventually speaking, it took me till about the age of 30 to fully develop my self-esteem and not care anymore about my height, weight, appearance. I didn't care, but it took me a while because it was a visual like, wow, in terms of first impressions, women were not going to be attracted to me because I was 5'5", and I was like, man. And as a guy,
wait,
yeah,
5'5", really?
Yeah, I'm
on a good day? 5'4", really? Honestly, come on, John.
Vito,
tell the truth here.
In this day and age, there's such things as elevator shoes, and there's my hair. So I get that 5.
Well, I need a pair of those. I need a pair of big time elevator shoes then. Okay.
Exactly. So, like I said, it's impactful. It's hurtful. The words hurt. But I think that for people, you got to take your deficiencies and actually turn them into good and not, take things personally and not let words bother you. And the number one thing I always tell people is you have to love yourself. No matter what you are, short, fat, skinny, old, whatever your ethnicity, you have to start with self-love. It took me a while to get there, but I eventually did. And then I went the other direction and was like, hey, look at me, look what I'm doing and, doing 5 podcasts a week. So, hey, we all got to do what we got to do. But I think for this guy, I hope that he gets help. I hope that, he doesn't get taken advantage of, especially from the likes of TMZ, Barstool, and just because, like I said, now we're going to see this guy everywhere because when you do something and 25 million people see it, that's crazy. It was a crazy week to see that. And I just also think that maybe in terms of people videoing it, I don't think that was something that should have been highlighted because it was something that was kind of sad in a way. This guy kind of expressed that he's down, he's depressed, he's not happy. He's not, in a good mindset where when you act like that in public, Vito, that's a sign of a lack of control in terms of your emotions. This is my psychologist in me going, man, if you're that angry and you're out there spouting off, if you can't joke around like you and I do, if you can't take a serious look at yourself and say, hey, you know what, this is what my deficiencies are, but here's what I bring to the table. That's where my attitude started to shift was to say, when I was 30, I'm like, you know what? I'm 30. I'm a nice guy. I got brains. I got the ability to be creative. I have a small sense of humor. I got a love of sports. I can relate to people. Once I started to highlight and focus in on what I was good at, I didn't care anymore about the deficiencies. And that's where my shift was. Whereas in my 20s, that's all I thought about was, man, I wish I was AC Slater from Saved by the Bell. I wished I was, Pete Sampras, tall, dark, and handsome. Whereas I was, short, stocky, and semi-good looking. So I looked at it from that perspective, but hell no would I ever go into a public place and act a fool in front of everybody, especially, right around that time of 2008 was when the cell phone started to kick up. So I would have been, right there at the tail end of my 20s. So I'm thankful that, my youth was spared from a bunch of cell phones, whereas someone like you got your boss here at the podcast going, Vito, let's drop a video on this. Let's drop a video on that. I thought about a funny response to this video. Maybe we'll do it on Tuesday, but I just think that in life and I think you've taken a great attitude like, hey, it is what it is. I'm happy. I'm out there. I do what I do. You carry yourself very well. You hear the comments and you just let it bounce off your chest. And I think you've handled it in a gracious manner. And that's why we like having you around, is that we can joke around about it. You lob jokes at me. I lob jokes at you. We laugh at the end of the day. I'm not going to go cry. When the microphones are off and we're off the phone, I'm going to cry to myself. But, you didn't hurt me that much.
Well, I would hope to God not. You're a grown man. You're 40. You're an adult. But, I guess I am too. But you're a really grown man. Anyways, I know it's not good to suppress your negative thoughts and it's good to let it all out. But when you let it out to this extent, you look foolish. You look like a dumbass and a guy that can't take anything. And you have to realize, when you're a smaller guy, yes, there are woes or, trials and tribulations, but there are trials and tribulations for everybody. And you have to realize that. And this guy is old enough to realize, okay, there is more to my self than my height. There's more to me than that. I'm not defined by my height, and I'm not defined by my personal height, Doc. And I have more to sell to people. There's more in my arsenal of skills than me talking about my height or, just reflecting on that all the time and letting that beat me up. So I refuse to. I've tried to make it a strength, an attribute that I can use to sell myself to lead to further opportunities. And I think I've, use it to help make a name for myself, even at the podcast network. And once again, I can accept that I am the way that I am, that I am a little person. I can poke fun at myself, as you were saying. We can poke fun at each other. So we embrace the fact that we're short dudes. And because we have realized, too, John, that there is more to us than our height. Once again, we are not defined by our heights. And I think when you let yourself be defined by your height, and I know it's, easier said than done, but when you let that happen, you're not going to be the most happiest person possible. You're not going to be the most successful person you possibly can be. So, this guy, I think this has been a stunt, a big time PR stunt for himself to build up his so-called brand. And, it's gone viral. It's taken on a life of its own now. And I think this guy really desired that. And hey, it's happened for him. But I hate to see when, a guy will take advantage of something to that extent. And now he's trying to just make a name off of that. And, sell himself for that and for nothing else. And is this going to be his way of making money as well? Because I think when that's the case, it's piss poor. It goes back to the fact, too, that this guy is not being authentic. And I don't like that. I don't stand for that, John.
Okay, before we get out of here, what was your first thought? What was your first thought when you seen the video? You see it, you played it. What was your first thought, your first sentence in your mind when you see that and you see him ranting and raving?
I thought he would never get a woman, like I tweeted out. I did tweet out in response to this video once I watched it, because you actually sent it my way on Twitter. So, from that Detroit podcast, I'm at Vito Jerome. And once again, what I tweeted in response was really my initial thought was that this guy's never going to get a woman now. But also, when he got pummeled, I loved it. I had a laugh. I know I'm like some bad, but I laughed when that guy came out of nowhere and just took him to the ground, man, and completely pummeled him once again.
You can follow Vito on Twitter at Vito Jerome. Follow the show at Two Bad Hombres and at Detroit Podcast. If you've agreed or disagreed with anything that we've said on today's show, hit us up. We love interacting. So I was the guy that sent it your way, huh? So I love it. I love the fact that through my use of social media, I can show Vito, what's going on in society, and we can comment on it. I love talking about stuff like this with you on Two Bad Hombres. I hope you have a great weekend, and make sure you're following the network. All you got to do is find your favorite outlet to find podcasts, search Detroit Sports Podcast, hit that subscribe button, and the podcast will find you. You don't got to do anything else. Sit back, enjoy our content, enjoy the great work that we do here at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. See everybody next week. Thank you for the time, Vito.
Hey, let me just say this too, John. You haven't caused me any kind of mental discomfort and anxiety yet. Okay? Like that Bagel boss has endured through, obviously. But with that, have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll talk to you again next weekend.